commentary. I think a moment like this is an historical moment. And I wanted to set something straight for the record. I know as a quasi-historian how meaningful it is for me when I discover important precedents. For example, when I read that Dr. Bitzer was turned on to New Thought, it was after he returned from service from World War I, and his father gave him Emily Cady's book, Lessons in Truth, and that was his first exposure to New Thought. And I find things like that not only intriguing, but important. And Cooper and I were sharing a long time ago in the office, and I wanted everybody here to know how Dr. Walker discovered the science of mind. I think that is important to get that on the record. So Cooper, would you come up here, please, and tell us that story? This is Cooper Neal. I think you know him.
I'd do this. I was so prepared to be just, yeah, let's have fun. And then Kelly sang that song, and that's enough to kill you. And so I'm not a public speaker. John's a public speaker. I was an actor, but that's a big difference in an actor and a public speaker. So please bear with me, and I'll try not to bore the pants off you.
I won't let them.
Oh, good. All right. Well, I start off by saying I fell in love with David Walker in 1970. We were both working in Las Vegas at the time, and we were both raised Catholic. I stopped going to church long before then, and David professed to be an atheist. He was so turned off by the God that he was taught was up in the sky, keeping records on us all and condemning us to hell for being who we are. After 3 years, we moved to LA. And like I say, David wanted nothing to do with religion of any kind. He was really burned. But when we got here, a friend of, I had been reading some self-help books because I was feeling anxious because I was out of work after having steady employment for 3 years. And when you're an actor, you always think, will I ever work again? So I was reading some self-help books, you know, about positive thinking and how your thought creates and about the power that's in all of us. And we had lunch with a friend of David's, a dear friend, an older lady named Connie T. Porton. And she was a Hollywood character, all right. And she had been going to Dr. Bitzer's church since he opened the doors next door. And she would send David Creative Thought magazine, and he would just throw it in the garbage. He never even opened it up. Well, we were having lunch with Connie when we moved back here, and she started talking about the church again, and my ears kind of perked up. And I said, well, you know, a lot of these things that she's talking about are things that have been helping me lately in these self-help books. Why don't we go? And he was like, no. Well, I twisted his arm and I said, look, let's go. We'll sit in the back, and if you really hate it, we'll sneak out, and then we'll go have lunch. And he was a foodie just like me, and because we were young and gorgeous and thin at the time, we could be foodies. And so I talked him into attending, and I got to tell you, that one day changed our lives. From then on, he found God, but not the God that he was taught was up in the sky, but the God that's within every one of us. He loved Dr. Bitzer, and he loved the teaching, and he never missed a Sunday, and he never missed a class. And in a short while, Dr. Bitzer recognized that David was very special, and he made him his staff minister, and David taught for 3 years, and his classes were huge. And then Dr. Bitzer told him that it was really time for him to go off on his own and have his own church. And so he was offered the San Bernardino Church. And he was there for almost 5 years, and he worked very hard at it. And he was dying to get back to LA and his students and his friends. But he stuck it out for 5 years, and he figured that's his college education on how to run a church. He really did learn how to run a church. And he was grateful for that. And George Hahn is now the minister of that very church. I'm so proud of you, George, that I know what you've been going through because I know what San Bernardino's like. And I got to hand it to you. You're a brave soul. And anyway, that's how it all started. And I think most of you know the history of our church. We've been to 5 different venues since we've been a church for 25 years. And that happened in 1989 that we got licensed. And John's already said how many of you, it's so thrilling to see all you people that a lot of you haven't seen in a long time. And it's just great to have you here in this room. We were the longest at the Wilshire Theater, and that was due to John. He was on the board, and he was a practitioner, and he was the one that decided to check out the Nederlander organization, which owned the Pantages and the Wilshire Theater. And we wouldn't have even thought to go there because it was such a big, major theater in town. We thought, well, we're a little church. They're not going to. Well, John did it. He arranged it, and we got in there, and it was wonderful. We were there for 12 years. And that was really when our church was at its peak. Times have changed, like John said on Sunday. It's a different world now. There's so much new thought with the internet and with Oprah and Deepak Chopra and all of them. That it's people can stay at home now and get their new thought. They don't have to go to church, and so churches are having a harder time. But John is doing a wonderful job. We've been here, yes. I love that man. I just love that man. He's done such good things since he's been here, and it had to have been scary to take over this church because he knew David had quite a reputation, especially in Religious Science International. If you were here for David's memorial, you saw that there were 60 ministers came for that, and that just shows you how much respect they had for him. And when John was able to take over the church, it was unanimous. It was David's choice. And when we had our membership meeting, and everybody came to that, and it was unanimous. They wanted John. Because when he came here to speak, I had so many people saying, do we have a chance to get him to be David's successor? And I said, I don't think so. He's got a wonderful practice up north in Seattle, or outside of Seattle in Bellevue. I said, I don't think he'll be able to do it, but we'll see. Well, we made it happen. David made it happen. And I just want to say, I have never really thanked this church for the 5 months that we were a ship without a sail, because David was either in the hospital or in rehab, because he had been diagnosed with lung cancer. And he gave it a brilliant fight. In December of 89, he managed to get through the whole month of December, but you could see the struggle. He just didn't have the energy to do it. And by the start of the new year, 2010, that's when he ended up in the hospital. And anyway, I never got to really thank everybody that helped me to hold it together for those 5 months when we didn't have somebody in charge. And that was our wonderful practitioner corps, our staff minister, Reverend Marion Moon, our board of directors, and our dedicated volunteers, especially Gary Bond and Ernesto Reyes, and Bob Z. They would get here first thing in the morning and set everything up, and they never asked for any applause or anything. They just were so giving. So I wanted to thank them for that. And I want to thank all of you, because you're all of you were important in bringing us to where we are today. And I'm so happy for John. He's just doing a great job. And he does things that I never thought possible. You know, nobody loved dogs more than David and I, and cats. We were animal lovers, but we would never dreamed of even asking if we could have a blessing of animals in this building, because they are so strict here about bringing any beverages or any food in here. And I thought, they're not going to agree to us bringing dogs and cats in here. You know, and I said that to John. Well, he's got a consciousness like no other, and he made it happen. And I said, how do you keep the dogs from barking and the cats from pooping and peeing all over everything? And he said, I've been doing it for years, and it always works. And I was like, oh, yeah, right. Well, we'll see. Well, can I tell you, it's been that way. It's been like a miracle. Those animals are all behaved and quiet. There's only been one dog that peed in this theater. And can I tell you, that was my dog. It just goes to show you what you put in mind. And sure enough, Ollie didn't disappoint. He did it right in front of John, but you know what? John realized that Ollie has the consciousness that this is his church. And after that, every year now, he wants Ollie to always lead the procession of the dogs down the aisle and up on the stage. He's always the first one. And I thank you for that, and Ollie thanks you also. Anyway, I thank you. I love all of you, and I thank you for showing up tonight. It's so good to see you. Love you.